A key point here is that the resemblance between usage rules and certain conventions of etiquette or fashion is closer than the philosophical descriptivists know and far more important than they understand. Take, for example, the descriptivist claim that so-called correct English usages like brought rather than brung and felt rather than field are arbitrary and restrictive and unfair and are supported only by custom and are, like irregular verbs in general, archaic and incommodious and an all-around pain in the ass. Let us concede for the moment that these claims are 100% reasonable. Then let's talk about pants, trousers, slacks. I suggest to you that having the so-called correct subthoracic clothing for U.S. males be pants instead of skirts is arbitrary. Lots of other cultures let men wear skirts. Restrictive and unfair. U.S. females get to wear either skirts or pants, based solely on archaic custom. I think it's got to do with certain traditions about gender and leg position. The same reason women were supposed to ride side saddle and girls' bikes don't have a crossbar. And in certain ways, not only incommodious but illogical. Skirts are more comfortable than pants. Footnote, presumably. Pants ride up, pants are hot, pants can squish the nads and reduce fertility. Over time, pants chafe and erode irregular sections of men's leg hair and give older men hideous half-denuded legs, etc., etc. Let us grant, as a thought experiment if nothing else, that these are all sensible and compelling objections to pants as an androsartorial norm. Let us, in fact, in our minds and hearts say yes, shout yes, to the skirt, the kilt, the toga, the sarong, the jupe. Let us dream of, or even in our spare time, work toward an America where nobody lays any arbitrary, sumptuary prescriptions on anyone else, and we can all go around as comfortable and aerated and unchafed and motile as we want. And yet the fact remains that in the broad cultural mainstream of millennial America, men do not wear skirts. If you, the reader, are a U.S. male, and even if you share my personal objection to pants and dream, as I do, of a cool and generally unsquishy American tomorrow, the odds are still 99.9% that in 100% of public situations you wear pants, slacks, shorts, trunks. More to the point, if you are a U.S. male and also have a U.S. male child, and if that child might happen to come to you one evening and announce his desire or intention to wear a skirt rather than pants to school the next day, I am 100% confident that you are going to discourage him from doing so. Strongly discourage him. You could be a Molotov-tossing anti-pants radical or a kilt manufacturer or Dr. Steven Pinker himself. You're going to stand over your kid and be prescriptive about an arbitrary, archaic, uncomfortable, and inconsequential decorative piece of clothing. Why? Well, because in modern America, any little boy who comes to school in a skirt, even say a modest all-season midi, is going to get stared at and shunned and beaten up and called a total geekoid by a whole lot of people whose approval and acceptance are important to him. Footnote. In the case of little Steven Pinker Jr., these people are the boy's peers and teachers and crossing guards. In the case of adult cross-dressers and drag queens who have jobs in the straight world and wear pants to those jobs, it's bosses and co-workers and customers and people on the subway. For the die-hard slob who nevertheless wears a coat and tie to work, it's mostly his boss who doesn't want his employees' clothes to send clients the wrong message. But it's all basically the same thing. In our present culture, in other words, a boy who wears a skirt is making a statement that is going to have all kinds of gruesome social and emotional consequences for him. You can probably see where this is headed. I'm going to describe the intended point of the pants analogy in terms that I'm sure are simplistic. Doubtless there are whole books in pragmatics, or psycholinguistics, or something devoted to unpacking this point. The weird thing is that I've seen neither descriptivists nor snoots deploy it in the wars. Even Garner scarcely mentions it, and just once in this dictionary's many essays on class distinctions, quote, many linguistic pratfalls can be seen as class indicators, even in a so-called classless society such as the United States, unquote. And when Brian A. Garner uses a clunky passive like can be seen as to distance himself from an issue, you know something's in the air. Additional footnote. In fact, pretty much the only time one ever hears the issue made wholly explicit is in radio ads for tapes that promise to improve people's vocabularies. These ads tend to be extremely ominous and intimidating and always start out with, "Did you know people judge you by the words you use?"